Everyone, welcome back to No Fixed Agenda presented by Bubs Naturals. We are your hosts, Jeff Stoner
and Omar Hernandez.
So we brought in our friend Stephen Kuzmanic, or my friend anyway, and Omar had a first time meeting him here today. And I tell you what, I figured you guys were going to hit it off, and it did not disappoint.
Did not even close.
So it's kind of one of those things where I was able just to kind of sit back and just listen to you two guys. Like, I don't even think I don't even think I really even talked much of the time. It was kind of just like I kind of spit some words out every now and then just to.
It was hard to get a word in edgewise for you. Absolutely,
it was between the two of you and how we talked about it. And it's funny. Like I referenced this in the conversation is when I wanted to bring Stephen in just because I knew his backstory and I knew he's entertaining, and I know that is an individual who does not shut up and he could talk about anything. And surprisingly enough, we talked about rehab and addiction the entire time. And it was amazing to sit here and listen to his story, because I hadn't even heard half of this shit, especially when he's talking about how he was pretty much dead in his bed. Yeah. Like, I had no idea. I actually even told Des that after the conversation is like, oh my God, you would not believe what I learned today. And to hear his conversation and then to hear your backstory about what you went through and everything else was fucking amazing to me.
I'm going to tell you, like, I legitimately did not think, I was worried about meeting this guy. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to hit off with him. And we sat down immediately, and it was immediate connection. And it wasn't, I think we had no idea that we were going to talk about addiction. We literally were going to just talk about life and his story and how he can be. And it turned into this very powerful conversation that I know the listeners are going to get a lot of benefit from. And I got goosebumps 5 times in the conversation, because he used that term of his addiction being a superpower. And that's something that I've really used my entire life for my own addiction. So I think the listeners are going to hear a lot of good information from him, and it's very entertaining. I think we laughed. I think my stomach cried. My stomach was hurting and I was crying just of the amount of times we were laughing. But I think overall it's going to be a pretty exciting episode. I think
so. I think people are really going to enjoy it. It's the charisma, I think, with it when it's all said and done. And I thoroughly enjoyed just sitting back and listening to the two of you talk. So this is going to be fun. You guys really enjoy it. Have fun with it. I hope you guys learn something from it. One of the big things, Omar just said it, is addiction is a superpower. And we talk about that and what that really means. And I hope you guys cling on to that, because it was amazing.
Buckle in and listen to 2 addicts rant for hours on end. Let's go, baby.
God. Yeah. Let's do this. All right. Please enjoy Stephen Kuzmanic. The No Fixed Agenda podcast is brought to you by Bubs Naturals. Their mission is simple: live better, longer. Bubs helps fuel people to reach their maximum human potential through supplements sourced from nature's highest quality ingredients, while giving 10% of all profits back to charity. You can learn more about their NSF for sports certified collagen peptides and electrolyte drink mix at bubsnaturals.com.
I'm taking this train to the promised land. Won't you give it up? You understand. We'll take one foot forward. Don't look back.
How did I get here? Right?
Yeah.
And fuck. And then the other thing that I think about when I think about like these kind of pages is, what is the story they're telling themselves, dude? Yeah, that's fucking horrible. They're like they're driving across country to sell their bodies, bro.
Yeah, that's tough.
And because they're addicted to a substance, bro.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? And then I used to think, and then when I look at these things, like, I think about the shit that I used to do when I was in my addiction, bro. Lock myself in the storage and be like, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean?
Wild.
Like,
Wild.
Yeah. So that intrigues me so much, right?
It's crazy. It takes you to places that you never, you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, what am I doing?
You are. Like, your logical mind is still there a little bit, but not really. You're
There's not
in
much logic there,
no,
bro.
you're in total fight or flight. Like, what do I need to do to move on?
To move on.
Or to not feel like this? Okay,
Give me
well,
another drink.
that
Give me another
works.
hit.
It might only take 5 minutes off, but that works.
I got a 20-minute break here.
Yeah.
Then I got to do again. Like,
Yeah.
You know, when he and I talked about doing this, it started off with just a conversation that I told him about my 5 fears. Like I had big 5 fears when I was when I had when COVID hit. Like I said, I'd never been out of a job, dude. My entire life, I've been working since I was 9 years old. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been out of a job. Like fucking sit there with no job, dude. Like what do I do? I'm like, well, no, that's your fucking thing. I had a whiteboard in my office and I'm like writing down like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Right. These are my fucking biggest fears. And I just literally just started fucking tackling them off. And this was like the last one of my big fears was starting a podcast because I have so many learning disabilities. I don't know how to speak. And, you know, all this other stuff. And so the same things that drove me to be an addiction, right? To be an addict was the same things that I was overcoming, right? So starting the podcast, huge. So when he offered it up, I was like, cool. I was like, why do I want to start a podcast? Because I want to be the main guy? No. I was like, Jeff's like, I want to learn.
Yes.
Right. And when we're talking about doing this, so it's funny you say that because for me, it's an act of service.
Totally.
Right. And so if I remain in service, I'll remain sober. Like that's for me.
Yeah. And like I said, if you get one person that even just changes their mindset a little bit, maybe they don't get sober.
A seed is planted.
But they're like, okay, well, that guy did it. And he kind of looks like me or whatever. And he relates to you in some way. They're like, okay, maybe I could do it. Or maybe that's what I need to do. Yeah. And maybe it's one step closer. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And that's all I do is like plant seeds.
Yeah.
Like if I'm planting a seed, at some point when it gets watered, it'll grow. Right? Yeah. If it gets a little sunshine, it might grow. Like you never know, dude. Like
I mean, most people don't do it their first time, right? Yeah. They'd go through this process where where it's just like over and over, you know. Luckily for me, it wasn't that way. Yeah. It was like I did an IOP and then I went to like a real place. And I'm like, oh, okay, that place was for me. It was built for me. Yeah.
What was the name of the
It's called Treehouse.
Treehouse. Where are they?
They're up in Costa Mesa. It's 5 months.
5 months?
Yeah, they told me that, and that's the exact reaction I had. I was
your eyes popped out of your head.
I was like
5 months.
I was like what 5 months. I'm like, aren't these normally like 90 days? Dog?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I've heard of 3 days, bro. 30 days, and it's like the guy was like, bro. How long you been doing this shit? I'm like, basically since 15. And then he's like, okay, that's years, dude. You can't take 5 months to get better.
Try something new for 5 months, dude.
5 months, bro. It's not that long, actually.
For me, I can relate because, like, were you mandated to do that?
Oh no,
you went in there by yourself.
I mean, there's like, it has to be.
Well, not necessarily. No, it does not have to be, dude. Like I was in a program called Crash. Right. And this was like down in San Diego, southeast San Diego. And that program was known for like third strikers.
Okay.
So like you had no other choice.
Yeah. They're like,
this was like your last chance. You were going to go to prison for 25 years to life if you had one more offense.
Yeah.
And so they send you to Crash. Because Crash was like known to be the real toughest freaking. It was a 90-day program. Yeah. And you could do inpatient or outpatient. And inpatient, dude, was horrible because they had this whole thing for like 30 days, no contact. And then, and then 30 days you were like allowed contact, but no, like you can get letters, no phone calls. And then your last 30 days, you were allowed full contact. Crash was known for being this hard ass program and third strikers went there all the time. And I was the only dude in the entire house that was not court mandated to be there. Like it was a trip, dude. They're like, no. I went to the outpatient Crash and I was like, I quickly found, I'm not going to do drugs anymore. Well, that girl's kind of cute. Let me go chase that. Right. And so then girls became a thing. And then I'm like, dude, I can't do it. And then finally the counselor at the program was like, yo, I think you need to like do something else. And I'm like, she goes, I can't tell you what to do because you're not court mandated. Yeah. And I'm like, so what do you think I need? And the same mentality, all or nothing, right? All or nothing. They were like, go inpatient. well, what is inpatient? To tell you all the things that I just got done telling you, right? And I was like, oh man, all right, I'll do that. And I had gotten caught by my girlfriend, my wife at the time. And she was like, oh yeah, I need to go do this.
Yeah. And
so I went, and everybody was there like, wait a minute. So you're court mandated? I'm like, nah, man, I'm here. Why would you do that to yourself? I'm like, because I needed it. I want to be sober. Their success rate was low because they had these things where like you couldn't even hold a secret. If you got caught holding a secret, you're out of the program.
Wow.
It didn't even require you to like use drugs. But if you were in the house and both of you guys were talking about sneaking a sack in or something, and I knew about it, and I didn't snitch, I'm out. Just the opposite. So it was a really tough program. So I can totally relate to. I wouldn't think of like a 5-month program because I would have done the same thing like you. I'd probably be like,
and there's programs that are
longer years.
That are like that.
Yeah. So what's the from somebody who's never gone through that, or somebody who's listening in who's never gone through that, is because you said 90 days. Is 90 days kind of like that?
Is a standard.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at 5 months, like where does 5 months sit within the rehab process as far as like what is the 5 month, like why 5 months did they choose?
So the program I was in, it's called Treehouse. The reason it's 5 months is because this guy, who was an addict himself, he developed this program, and it's not the norm. So he figured out over time that was like the sweet spot. 5 months is a sweet spot where it's enough time for you to address all your issues and have some steps towards like what you need to be to have a normal life. And it's like enough time to go out into the world, basically. Wow. 5 months was the number he came up with.
When you were going through it, I think I remember because you had the opportunity to kind of leave a little bit. Didn't you get a chance to like have some time away to go see Britt, or no? Am I completely off?
I had surgery.
Oh, you had surgery during that same time.
I had knee surgery, and so I was just at home on disability.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
During your 5 months?
No. You mean in the program?
In the program.
Yeah. So like you were saying, the first 30 days you have no contact. So no cell phone.
Right.
You actually, I mean, I can bring it back to the beginning of like, so when you show up to this place, there's 3 teams set up. They call them teams. There's a Navy SEAL involved in the development of this program.
Wow.
So you go in, and to get into the program, the team, there's like up to 12 guys. So there was like 8 guys when I showed up, and they go into a room like this and they interview you for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And if they don't want you on the team, they can say no, and you can be denied joining the program. So the actual people in the program have to accept you onto their team.
That's a concept.
So they grill you like, hey, are you serious? Are you serious about recovery? Are you serious about getting better? All these questions like, where are you from? What do you do? What do you like to do? And if they don't accept you, you're out.
Wow.
We denied a guy while I was there.
Wow.
We said, dude, you're full of shit.
It's funny how other addicts can find other.
Yeah, we're like, dude, a room full.
Yeah.
They can pick out a liar like that, and we're just like, you can't come.
Yeah,
you're not ready. You're not ready.
That's cool
because it's a really intense program. Yeah. So like, I'll go through a week. Monday, you wake up at 5 a.m. Every day you're up at 5 a.m.
I remember that.
You're riding a bike. So the first. You can only ride a bike in the program. And the house is, you're in your team house with bunk beds, 6 dudes in a room, bunk beds.
Yeah.
Wake up, everyone wakes up, make some breakfast or whatever if you want. And you ride a bike. I think it was about a mile, maybe less than that, to the center, put on a wetsuit, stand in the line. Then the coaches come out and they go, okay, everyone ready? They actually give you a hug because hugging releases oxytocin, right? So it's a little boosted, whatever. It's weird. It sounds weird, right? And it's a male only program, but they're all hugging. I mean, it's all part of it. So you put on a wetsuit, then you go get in these vans, go to the beach, pump up a rib like the Navy SEALs use, those boats, and you paddle out into the waves. For an hour, you're surfing waves, getting wrecked, running on the beach, doing push-ups, all this crazy stuff on the beach.
Wild.
Get in the vans, come back. and then you run through like a hour workout. It's 3 20-minute stations, hour-long workout, 2-hour break, therapy in the afternoon. You're busy from 5 a.m. to 5 at night.
Nice.
Go back to the house, cook dinner. You get $50 a week for food. You got to go buy your food, make dinner, and then you can continue the process every day.
You bought your own food?
Yeah.
Wow. You got to shop?
We had to buy our own food. Yeah.
Lucky.
So that's part of it is, and you can't, so you can't go anywhere without a partner.
Yeah.
They call it support. So you're on support for the first 3 months. And then after that, you can go on your own.
Right.
So now you don't need support. And then so they slowly work you in. After 30 days, you get your phone back. And it's just, that's the program. So it's really intense working out.
Yeah.
And everything's intense.
So is that what kind of led to you going into fitness as part of your?
Yeah. So my wife actually found the program. I was at detox for 30 days and I needed 30 days.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep.
So I want to back up because that the fitness aspect, because it's interesting. You were as scrawny as they fucking came. Sorry, dude.
Wow. I thought this was a judgment-free zone, bro.
I was 140 pounds.
Wow.
He was tiny, dude. He was
tiny.
And just so the listeners know, how much do you weigh right now?
200.
Wow.
But he'd always talked about how he wanted to get into fitness and do a little bit more. It was at that time, it was more the running. Like I want to start running. We were talking about doing more races and all that stuff. So it's interesting that the program helped lead you more into that. Yeah. What I kind of want to hear though is, what was the tipping point that got you there?
Got it.
Because I think
the destruction.
Well, I mean, it's
what led up to like at what point was it like
as I told you, like I've seen Stephen at his
worst. Yeah.
And now his best. Like it was one of those things. Like every single time that we hung out, everybody was like, Stephen, come. Yes. We know we're gonna get some. We know we're gonna have some fun. Yeah. We knew. You
brought the party. Apparently,
she was gonna go sideways.
Yeah.
Somehow,
it was gonna go sideways. Yeah. So I know that there was kind of that buildup of it. Like, what was that final breaking point that you looked at it and said, or your wife looked at it and said, like, listen, this has got to stop.
Yeah. So that what I was telling you when I came in here, kind of like that point in my head when it was like, oh no. So I was using opiates. It moved on to what you get on the street now, which is fentanyl. I actually,
were you into fentanyl at that point?
Yeah,
you were.
It's hard to say. Like,
I mean, you don't know half the time.
Know,
like, trace, right?
I don't know when it. Like,
there's no label really on your sack, bro.
Yeah. When it's really hard for me to like put like a timeline on it, because I don't really know like when it started, when it stopped. Like when I saw you, I might not have even been on it, but I was actually on Suboxone. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. It's a prescribed medication. What it does, it's called a partial agnostic. So it only fills part of your opiate receptor versus the whole opiate receptor if you're using real drugs. It also blocks, like if I were to use a real opiate, it would block the effects of that. Okay. But it's a partial agnostic and it's a really strong bond onto the receptor. So that medication I was on for 2 years. So I was on that when I knew you.
Yeah.
The problem with that stuff is you can't come off it. They say you can, but you can lower the doses, and it's actually harder to get off heroin.
You actually experience the sicknesses and all that. The
sickness is longer and harder than anything. I've detoxed from everything, right? Mm-hmm. That was the hardest. Yeah. It took 30 days for me to even, or about almost more than 30 days to even sleep through the night. So I slept an hour, maybe a night for 30 days.
That's painful.
It sucked, right? Yeah. But anyway, so I was on that. Before that, I OD'd. Brittany found me dead on my bed and had to wake me up.
Whoa. That I did not know.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
so that's probably something that she's not going to say.
So she came in, she left to buy a dress for an event and came home, and I was blue on the bed, dead. And she started jumping on me, calling the paramedics, and I woke up. So I woke up. That's when I went on the Suboxone. I was on it for 2 years. The last 6 months of the Suboxone, I was going using that stuff and the other stuff. So I would like go back and forth.
What was the other stuff?
Fentanyl.
You were on fentanyl.
So I was going back and forth.
Because fentanyl didn't affect the Suboxone as much as the heroin.
You could kind of break through because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
We call it like breaking through.
Yeah.
So it's so powerful. But so I was baseballing back and forth between the two things.
Yeah.
And then eventually I actually got in a car accident. I was coming home from work and I passed out.
You were working this whole time?
Yeah. So I passed out. Potentially, I don't know if I can call it an OD, but it probably could have been. I was dark and I crashed my Prius. I woke up. All the airbags are deployed. I didn't hit anybody, thankfully. And
what'd you crash into?
Fire hydrant, a light pole, and a K-rail. Nice. I hit a bunch of stuff. Water's going in the air. I mean, it was wild, dude. Wow. And the only thing I cared about was where my drugs. Yep. Start looking for them.
It's funny.
I put my arm in the car, cut my arm to get them. I found them in like a crumpled part of the bumper. Yeah. What the hell? But anyways, that was the start of the process.
But that's the sickness. Like, honestly, God, like if you think about that kind of stuff, like I just wrecked my car.
Yeah.
Like, I could have died, right? All my airbags are deployed. And the one thing is like, where's my drug?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So that was like the start of like a 3-day, through my 4 days to detox. So I came home. Brittany goes, what the hell's going on? She digs through my backpack. And
did she know you were using this whole time other than you ODing?
She knew, but people that love you don't want to believe it. So they'll kind of make it in their own mind that everything's okay.
Right. How long had you been with Brittany?
I've been with her for 5 years.
At that point
now? At that point, 3 years or so. So she goes, and she had found me OD'd, a year and a half before, 2 years. So there was like this process, right? And so she dug through my backpack. And then as addicts too, like I really believe this is when you want to get help, you almost want to get caught.
Yeah.
So you're kind of setting stuff up.
Subconsciously, but not really. This is like a subconscious thing, 100%.
I left some crumpled foils in my backpack.
Wow.
So she dug through the backpack. She goes, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
And honestly, it was a relief. Because at that point, I was in a hotel up in San Pedro on my last little run, right? I knew it would be my last run. And I was like, okay, good. She found that stuff. It was a relief. And I'm like, yeah, I need help. So I called the detox place and I went in the detox 3 days later. But the point that really was the tipping point was all that stuff. So the accident, Brittany finding it. But then one day I was using, and you use to take your problems away, right? Yeah. Well, I did my little hit. It didn't work. Like literally, I was like full of anxiety, full of all this emotion. I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't work. I've heard about this, like where there's a point where it doesn't work.
I can relate to that.
And it stopped. Yeah. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
I relate to this so much right now. Like, you don't understand. Like, like I grew up in addiction. My whole family's. My dad died of a heroin overdose. My mom was an alcoholic, crystal meth person, right? So, my whole family on my mom's side is all on drugs or alcoholics. So I've seen addiction. I've seen people dragged out of my basement blue. I've seen it all growing up. I was born into this environment. So when I, growing up as a kid, went, I'm not going to be an addict. There's no way. This is fucked up. Like, this is not right. Why would I want to do that? That's stupid. Like, that is so stupid. And I resented my mom over it. I had all these issues growing up and I was mad at the world. And then I didn't know my dad had died over a heroin overdose. They told me he died of a heart attack. And then later on, I found his death certificate. That's how I found out. So then I was mad at the whole world. I abstained. I didn't say I was sober because I smoked weed and drank since I was like 11 years old. Yeah. And I remember I had like almost an OD at 12 and somebody had slipped me a joint with like stuff in it. And I think I had heroin or something or PCP. And I smoked the whole thing. I'm sitting there. I woke up in a pool a tub, cold water, like somebody just like slapping water on me, like, wake up, dude.
Yeah.
And that was like, and I was like, that somebody laced my stuff. I don't have a problem. And so my whole life I smoked weed. I said, I'm never going to do meth. I'm never going to do heroin. I'll drink and smoke weed. Yeah, that's all normal. That's fine. Yeah. Weed should be legal, right? Yeah. Okay. So I remember that when I turned 15, I had kids early. Like I got my girlfriend pregnant when I was 15. I had my first kid when I was 16. I had my second kid when I was 18. I had my third kid when before I was 21.
Dang.
Wow. I bought my house when I was 20, right? Wow. So, and it was all only because I wanted to prove to my entire family that they didn't have to be fucked up. They didn't have to be drugged. They didn't have to be alcoholics, addicts. And so that was my white knuckle moment where I'm abstaining from the time my daughter was born. I was like, I got a reason to live now. I'm not going to do drugs. Ended up getting divorced because I didn't know who I was. I'm a kid trying to raise a family. And then I get to that point where I got divorced and my whole purpose in life of proving my whole family wrong dissipated, was gone, taken away. And I started partying. Yeah. And I was this still very insecure kid at 22 years old.
Oh, yeah. You're a kid.
Not knowing who I was. Yeah. And then, I thought I was dumb, retarded, ugly. My wife, it was very volatile. And then I got into, I lost my job during my divorce. I ended up working at a mechanic's shop doing tires and oil changes. And during that point, I was drinking and partying like crazy. One of the mechanics comes out and he goes, "You look tired, man." And I said, "Yeah, dude, I am." And he put some meth in the break room. He's like, "Take a hit."
What?
Yeah. Dude, so I fucking took a hit.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like Superman.
Yeah.
I can see the future. Like I had never done meth. Growing up, like
somehow I'm wearing a cape.
Yeah. I think I did like 20 cars that day, dude. Yeah. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this at the time, but I have ADHD. Mm-hmm. So because I have ADHD, the meth made me feel normal. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in my life, I felt normal. And from 22 all the way to 24, 25, I was on it. I was on one. There was nothing that nobody could tell me. Like him, like Stephen, I was like, I had jackets with secret pouches in them. I had my whole setup. You're 100%. I had little stashes here and there. Yeah. I started selling. Using is more like using more than you were actually selling. Mm-hmm. Like these are the things that you do. And I remember that my mom had been in recovery. My mom was a drug and alcohol therapist.
Okay.
So after she got into recovery, she did that for a living, and she was in her recovery. She was working as a drug and alcohol therapist. And this is like, I'm aging myself, but this is when cell phones first started coming out.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, you have a Nokia brick in your pocket, and I'm meeting with my best friend who I always got high with, and we're getting high, and my phone accidentally dialed my speed dial, which was my mom. And I didn't know the phone was on, and we're sitting in the car getting high.
Oh.
And my mom didn't say anything. Yeah. Dude. She didn't say nothing, dude. She didn't say nothing, right? And so she coordinated and organized an intervention. Okay. My girlfriend did not know, which is my wife now. Suzette did not know. And she's like, there's no way that Omar, like my mom approached Suzette. Suzette told me this afterwards. She was like, there's no way that Omar's using drugs. And my mom was like, yes, here's the recording. She played the recording for me. He is on one. And I lived with my sister at the time, right? So I went from owning my home and having a family of 3 and doing all these things and had a great job at Coca-Cola and all this other stuff to sleeping on my sister's couch and living out of a suitcase. And so my girlfriend at the time, she was like, there's no way. Finally, the intervention comes along and I walk into my sister's house and there's 10 of my family members, right? So they're like,
that's always a good time.
Yeah, that's a good time, dude. And I'm like,
yeah, it's nice. They're all there for you.
Yeah. We love you. Yeah. And like, oh, shit. Yeah. and it's so I walk in and I'm like, oh, shit. Did somebody die? And they're like, my mom's like, we come together because we love you. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah.
Whoops. At that point, it's like, guys, don't read anything.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah. And I remember this, dude. And so I'm like, dude, I don't have a problem. You guys are crazy. Leave me the fuck alone. Like, for once in my life, I feel normal on this shit. Like, dude, come on, man. Like, leave me alone. In that mode. Yeah. I'm like, dude, it's totally fine. Everything's fine. I'm not an addict. I'm not you, Mom. I clearly said that. I'm not you, Mom. And my mom started crying, and my mom's tears did nothing for me because there was so much baggage there. But the one person, not even Suzette, would have like caused me to stop. My one person that protected me my entire life was my older sister. And so she's always taken me in during the abuse of my father and all that stuff. My sister would hide us in the closet. And so I had this utmost regard and respect for my sister. We get to the intervention. They all gone through their spill. We love you. And and I'm like, you don't hear it. I don't hear any of it. Dude. I'm like, when am I going to take my next hit? And I get through it. I'm like, I'm not fucking quitting because I don't have a fucking problem. You guys are all crazy. And I walk out the room and I can just hear my sister screaming at the top of her lungs, like sobbing. And that one scream is what saved my life. And because I had her in such high regards, that was the one moment that I knew I needed. I didn't do this because I don't want to cause harm to my sister because she protected me my whole life. And that was it. So then when I got into, I said, I'll try outpatient. That relapse woman, like this was just like, it was way too much.
How many times did you try and go through rehab? So
twice, technically.
Yeah.
Right. So I had done twice. I haven't relapsed. It's been 23 years now.
Okay.
I've been sober.
Wow.
From drugs. And so I went through and I went to outpatient. Then you heard the story of me going into like inpatient. And so inpatient, I actually got kicked out because I held somebody's secret. But I remember I had been there. I was like 2 weeks from graduation, bro.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, dude, like, what? But I was like, fine. I remember getting out of that and thinking to myself, wow, this is not normal. And it was perfectly normal. I just didn't have chaos going on in my life. Yeah. Rewind it. Before I went into rehab, I walked out. I said, I'll go to outpatient. And obviously you relapse, right? And that's what I did. And we had bought a bunch of drugs before this intervention happened.
Okay.
So then I looked at my family. And I was like, hey, all right, I'll go to rehab. But this is right before Thanksgiving, by the way. But I need to go do some stuff.
One last run.
Yeah. and so I did. And it was one last run. And it was one last run. It was legitimately one last run. So me and my buddy, we were like, we're going to party. We're going to blow through all this stuff. And I remember going to his house and we're sitting on the couch and I'm hitting the pipe, dude. And I passed out. I hadn't slept in 7 days, bro. Oh my God. 7 days.
Fuck.
And I was sitting there with the lighter and a pipe in my hand and I fell asleep for like an hour.
Yeah.
I popped up and I remember thinking, wow, that was amazing. I slept for an hour. And I looked at myself like, okay, yeah, I need to go to rehab.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. Like, cause it was like, how do you sleep when you just smoke a lot of meth? Mm-hmm. And like, how do you sleep? It was like, oh, I hadn't slept for 7 days. And I was like, okay, yeah, I got a problem. But even then, I went into outpatient and I relapsed again. Yeah. It's because I didn't have the structure and what I needed at the time. But so I can totally relate. Like, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work anymore, like, dude, you got a problem. And you know, as addicts, we talk about like always chasing that first high. Yeah. We always I wanted to go back to the break room in that shop to go, like, I feel like Superman. I never felt that again. Yeah. Never did I feel that again. I felt it when I got out of rehab, right? Because I was like, wow, this is normal. This is actually pretty fucking cool. Like, I don't have the stresses of life. I mean, yes, I was divorced and didn't have anywhere to live, but all was right with the world at that time. And so I felt that. And then that's when I kind of got into like, well, addiction as a behavior is huge. Mm-hmm. And you don't even think about it, right? You just think like the one thing in your head was, where's my drug? Where's my drug? Where's my drug? Where's my drug? And so like that whole time getting out of rehab, like I know I had triggers. Like there was a lot of things that I stopped doing. Like I couldn't work on cars for years because working on a car and the smell of oil would make my mouth water.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
It made my mouth water. Like I could not work on cars. So like, do you have like any of that experience?
Like with triggers?
Yeah.
No. I try to identify, they ask you, what are your triggers? I could never identify any. I mean, I think it's just all in my head.
Right.
But the other, so there was the, obviously me getting the accident and stuff, that was one of the points. But then when I was in the hotel waiting to go to detox, they couldn't get me in on Monday. So I had a few days by myself in the hotel.
Not good.
Which was what a weird experience, right? But I'm just alone in there. And then I'm just like, all right, let's do an inventory. Let's go back. Let's think about. So I went all the way back to the first time I drank alcohol. And it was, I think it was 15. It's at a friend's house in the hot tub, and they were passing around a handle of vodka.
There you go.
So I take a big old first pull of alcohol in my life. And the feeling I got was like all my problems went away. And I'm like, okay, that was the first time. And then I'm like, okay, what'd you do after that? Like, well, all I looked forward to was, when can I do that again?
Yeah.
From the first time, that's all I looked forward to. I'm like, oh, I was
from 15 on.
Yeah. I mean, and I wrestled. I was an athlete, so there'd be 5 months, 6 months between. Really, it's like, when is wrestling season going to end
so I can go back
again? So I'm like, oh, so that you were programmed this way from the first time you drank.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay. All right, well, let's just stop this now.
Yeah.
And then I went to detox.
Yeah. Let's bring it back to the fitness side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, Omar now is in the position where he's got a gym. Fitness is a huge part of his life. And I know that now that's pretty much, that's your go-to at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, how has fitness now played a factor into your life, and how that keeps you grounded?
So addiction itself is kind of a superpower, I think.
I love that. Dude.
I
fucking love that.
Yeah,
dude.
well, we pick. So like literally this. Have you ever read the book Tribe? I don't know if it talks about this in that book, but anyways, so back when we were cavemen, guys had to go hunt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, only 10% of the population are addicts, right? Well, 10% of the tribe got more of a dopamine hit from hunting. So they got more reward. They got a reward for that. They wanted to go do that. Well, addiction's the same thing, but the problem is the reward is very easy. You can just take this pill or take this drink. Well, your body's going to do the easiest thing it can do to get that dopamine hit. Well, now that dopamine hit comes from working out. So if you're an addict, you can use that to your advantage, or you can go the easy route. Well, the hard route's going to lift weights. So that's the route I pick now. And that's why working out is so important, because that's where I'm addicted. I'm addicted to working out.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I told Omar. I was like, now that you've now become addicted to working out. I think I said that actually. The other day.
And I always loved, I was an athlete. I was a wrestler for 7 years. I was always into lifting weights. My dad lifted weights. My dad had the magazines, bodybuilder magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was like, damn, I'm always looking at, I want to be one of them. But, so it's always been in there. It's just, I never committed to it for this long. I've been lifting now for 2.5 years, close to 2.5 years. I was 140 pounds and I'm 200. So that's 60. By the way, I'm 8% body fat. So that's
he has to throw that in there.
Yeah, he had to throw that in there. 8% body fat.
So that's 8%.
I mean, I'm like 275 pounds at 40% body fat.
So that's I put on like 40 pounds of lean muscle mass.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how you say, I love that you say addiction is your superpower.
It is.
And here's why. When I was in corporate America, after I got into rehab, I got into logistics and supply chain. And I've always worked in like storerooms. And so spatial awareness is like one of my superpowers. I'm really good at it. So naturally I got into logistics and supply chain, and I was like, man, dude, I really like this. I'm really good at it. And then my addiction became my work. So I went from alcohol, I went from my family and proving my family wrong. That was my addiction. And then when that was taken away from me, or I lost it, drugs were my addiction. And then I got into a career of logistics and supply chain. And my number one goal was to become the highest level I possibly can in that supply chain. Right?
Yeah.
And I did. And as I did that, I clearly remember thinking, because I was already at rehab, so I had all the experience of all of this. And I said, I want to hire a bunch of addicts.
Yeah.
I love the story, by the way.
And he's like, so all of my jobs, they're like, why do you want to hire all these lowlifes? And back then, like, we would hire, like temp agency people, kind of remove your liability as, they work for 90 days for the temp agency. There's no issue, right? If you don't like them, you could just end their assignments. It's a lot easier.
Right.
But you also got like some of the worst employees in the world, 100%. Right? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, I could do that. You said them do that, like, shit, they're not doing, they're fucking it up. I remember that I used to be like, I want to hire all the quote unquote fuckers.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? And I'm like, because they're going to be addicted to work.
Yep.
And they're going to be some of the best employees you will ever have. And so all these jobs, all these companies were like, why are you putting yourself through this headache? I said, because there's gems in there. Trust me. And ironically, through my entire career's logistics was Omar's known for building amazing teams. And all that was me looking for the gems.
Yeah.
Was me going, all these people, like, yeah, you can hire, like, I could put 5 applicants in a room and 4 of them have college degrees and they would put me to sleep.
Yeah.
And the one person that didn't have no degree, but came from the school of hard knocks, and that person would outwork these 5 applicants combined.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so they were like, dude, that's what I was known for. They didn't want to believe it. And so every job I went to, I was like, we're going to bring on a temp agency. All right. Why? Your margins are going to go up. Margins are going to go down because we're going to have to pay a higher rate. But don't worry about it. They'll drop once we hire them. And that was my model. And sure and shit, it worked.
Yeah.
Throughout my entire years. And some of the relationships I had, like understanding that addiction was a superpower. My best friend till this day, his name is Nick Tran. He was an addict. He walked into an interview with me at a tip agency. I love telling this story. And he calls me. He's like, hey, I'm coming from work. I'm going to be dressed in work clothes. I said, what's work clothes? Jeans and a t-shirt. As long as you show up on time, I'm happy. Right? I'm freaking almost 400 pounds at this point. I'm sitting back in this chair, and he's walking to this little 5'0" Vietnamese guy, right? And he's in his application, his resume says he's bilingual. I was like, wait, this guy's bilingual, right? So he's like, I'm expecting for him to be like mean Vietnamese accent, right? Yeah. And not speaking Spanish. Like, dude, and half my population was Mexican and the other half was like white and just a variety. And so I was like, I need somebody. And by that time, my boss had told me, you need to hire. He goes, stop. I knew in the leadership. So he goes, don't worry about hiring your replacement. Always look forward to hiring your replacement. So I was like, all right, cool. So he's trying to promote me, could not promote me because I needed to find somebody that can fill my role. I'm interviewing these people. I'm like, oh man, this person has a degree, this. And I just kept on going through it. It was like 10 days of interviews. I was done. And he was like one of the last ones. I clearly remember he walking in and he's talking to me and he's showing up in ripped jeans and a dirty ass white t-shirt. And I'm like, fuck, I'm wasting time. So what's your name? And he's like telling me, and he's like, dude. And so I'm very stoic when I do interviews. Like I can smell bullshit a mile away. All right. So he's telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm coming for an interview. What do you do? He goes, well, I worked at Factory to You. And he's like, what do you do there? I'm offloading trucks. And why are you applying for a assistant manager position? How do you qualify from that? He goes, well, I was in the Marines. He starts telling me his whole life story. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's my fucking replacement. Yeah. He doesn't know this, right? Yeah. And then so he's like, I'm like, this fucking guy's gonna take my shit.
Yeah.
And then so I remember, yeah, he's good. And the whole time, dude, like if I were to bring Nick into the conversation right now, he'd be like, I thought legitimately you were judging me, and like I fucking hated you. And so till this day we talk to Stellar, and he's telling me this stuff, and I'm telling him like, so I walked out of the interview, I was done, and I called my boss and said I found my replacement. He's like, what? And he shows her, he goes, how is this guy who works for Factory to You offloading truck going to be a replacement? Trust me, he's going to be my replacement. And he goes, how are you going to do it? So I took Nick, who was an addict, didn't know it at the time. Reason why he was working at Factory to You was because he was fresh out of rehab, bro. Yeah. He was fresh out of rehab, strung out on meth. And so he comes in, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm not going to put you in the role immediately. I'm going to have you like work in the departments, and you're not going to tell anybody you speak Spanish, by the way. And he's like,
perfect.
Yeah. So he goes in, dude. He's telling the story. He's like, he's working, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna work in receiving. So I worked and put him in receiving, put him in shipping for a little bit, I put him in inventory control, order fulfillment. I put him all these different areas, and he was like, why the hell is this freaking little 5'5" Asian all over the place? Well, he's my runner. Don't worry about it. And he played stupid. He played his role like the true addict he was, right?
Deception.
100% deception, right? And then finally he learned all the departments. That was his formal training.
Yeah.
90 days of working in every department.
Yeah.
And then he came out of it and we hired him as the assistant manager. Everybody looked at him like, what the fuck? Where did this guy come from? And I said, from you guys. Like the level of respect that his 5 foot nothing ass had was so huge because he went in just like a true addict and was addicted to progress, to productivity, to making things happen. Like the same way he chased his sack was the same way he chased his overall productivity and effort.
That's his new drug.
That's his new drug, right? And so till this day, I have this relationship with him, and he credits me to like his success, right? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, no fucking way, man. Like you did that.
You set it up.
I opened the door, bro, but you had to walk through it. Yeah. And you didn't realize, but addiction is your superpower.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, you literally gave me chills, bro. Like you gave me chills. I'm like, because that's so true.
Well, it's true. And like the guys that I went through, man, all walks of life. You're talking guys that were homeless up to, D1 athletes that were bad motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And their brains just wired different.
Yeah.
And you have to be conscious of that. And
right.
If you're not, you get in trouble.
Right.
But if you use it to your advantage, you're above everyone else.
Yeah.
You're better.
Yeah. And just like you don't think like that when you're in your addiction.
No, you're a loser.
You're a loser. You're a piece of trash, bro. Like, dude, what the hell, right? And so it's like people that tell me that all the time, like you're so inspiring, or because you do this, like they don't know that the reason why I am the way I am, the reason why I'm all or nothing was because of my addiction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like that is my superpower, and that is the one thing that I'm like, when we were talking about interviewing in this thing, I'm just like so stoked because we can I knew we were going to get in this conversation, right? Because it's like, look, for all the addicts that are listening to this bad boy right now, like you have a superpower. Yeah. You just need somebody to kind of guide you to how to show you how to use it, because it's there. It's possible, right? And so freaking huge. When you talk about wanting to interview homeless people, like, there's so many people that are homeless that are just struggling in addiction because they're stuck and they don't know how to use their superpower. And it's a sad piece for me.
It's scary. Like, let's not deny.
Yeah, it is scary.
That quitting everything, being sober, it's scary. Yeah. You've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. I'm sure most addicts have been at it since they were young.
Yeah.
And it's very scary to be like, oh, wait, no, I can't do anything. Yeah. What do you mean? Nothing? Like, I can't have a glass of wine with dinner. And it's like, but once you get into it and you do cut all that stuff out, you realize you don't really even need it. Yeah. I mean, I walk through the supermarket down the booze aisle and I'm like, God damn, man, there's so much booze in here. Yeah. Like commercials, it's all beer commercial. I'm like, dude, it's everyone's focus. Oh, we got a baby shower. There's booze at the baby shower.
We get shots, everybody.
Like,
the mom to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, what is going on here? We're at brunch, you guys. I'm trying to eat some French toast, and we got bottomless mimosas. And it's like,
don't tell Des that, brother.
And I used to love that stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking great. I love that. But I can't.
You can't do that.
Dude, I'm going to bottomless mimosas and I'm going home with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's bottomless 3 days. So get the fuck out of here with that shit. But that's just the way my brain's wired. Like, I don't dog people that drink. Like, that's fine. Like, go. I wish I could. Like, I'll be on a fishing boat or something. It's like 7 a.m. I'm usually 3 beers deep. And I'm like, you guys haven't cracked a beer yet? What are you doing? Let's go, dude.
Do you to kind of to that point, like, and this is one of the conversation I'm just being honest, like when you got back, and all, our friend circle was sitting there talking about having parties and having groups over and stuff like that. It was always that question of how do we interact with this whole entire
that's a good question, dude.
Yeah, so honestly,
it's a great question. And it's funny because people think like yourself, you're going, oh, I don't want to drink around this guy, or how do I approach this?
Well, you want to be respectful.
Kitty gloves.
You want to be respectful.
I want to be respectful with it.
The most respectful you can do is just be fucking normal.
Yeah.
Like,
I love it.
Like,
literally,
be yourself. It's like, I'm not any different. I've changed my life. For me, it has nothing to do with you.
That's very true.
It really, like, and it's like, I get it. There's like that worry that, what if I trigger him, or what if?
And I think,
I don't know. Am I being disrespectful?
Yeah.
Because I'm drinking around a fucking sober guy. And it's like, no.
Right.
None of that's true.
Right.
And if it is true, that person hasn't done the work in their head and figured out like that they actually, maybe they don't even want to be sober.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not ready.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we figured out too, though.
Yeah.
Like we kind of understood once you were there, and Britt doesn't drink anymore either.
Yeah.
So it was kind of once we kind of saw that change, and there was no effect with you kind of being weird about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all of us as your friends were like, oh, fuck this. Like,
yeah.
He's got his shit together now.
Yeah.
He understands it. He gets it. We can still go ahead and have a good time and not feel like this weird deal around. So
and it is weird though. I mean, I get it. Like you got this guy who's been like the party guy around, like always having fun.
But to your point though, you're still that party guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, like this is the truth. So this weekend, one of my very long-term clients, it's her birthday. Her birthday was February 1st, and she's like, "We're gonna go to nightclub," and I'm like, "All right." Like, what time? 9:00. I said, on purpose? I want to go to bed at 9, dude. What the hell? They're like, come on, it would mean the world to me. And it's salsa. Like, that's how I met my wife, dancing salsa music. So I was like, man, I think I'm going to, I'll go. She's like, oh, that is so cool. I'm going to buy your ticket to get in. They're pounding, bro. And I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I made a story on my post. I said, how to turn up without alcohol. And I had a bottle of water in my hand, and I'm living it up, bro. I'm like jumping up and down, 2 shorts playing, like the whole thing. I'm living it up, bro. And I'm like, I didn't need all that.
Mm-hmm.
I can still be the fun. I will jump on a table, take my shirt off, and dance my ass off sober.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, best believe that's happening. like so.
Well, people think like people that drink and go party, they think that alcohol is what makes them fun or
not.
defines them.
100%.
And I'm telling you, dude, look at the guy who's like too drunk at the fucking party.
He's not enjoying life right now.
It's not a good look.
You don't look great.
I can't even talk to you. Dude.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, that's fine too.
Yeah,
but it's, you know, that's not the guy that you're like looking up to at the party. Like, dude, I hope he makes it home. You know?
Yeah. But it is like, it's funny that the stigmatism, because you bring it up. You bring it up like, how do I act differently?
Yeah.
And you don't need to. Like Stephen's right. You just act normal. And so the stigmatism between alcohol is alcohol.
Look, I wasn't drinking because you were drinking.
Yeah.
No,
I was drinking. Yeah.
I was drinking
because I liked to drink.
Give me a double. Bro.
Yeah. Fuck it. Give me the bottle. Yeah.
I used to see drinks that this guy used to pour. It's
Dude, I would go
like, where's the glass?
You guys would be like on the patio or whatever. I'm like, no one's inside now. I can go make my drink. Fill that thing up.
Daz is asking, where's all the tequila?
Yeah.
Fucking Steve.
Right here in his big gulp cup.
Yeah. So I get that. I mean, that's true. Like people get like worried about, you know, being around someone who's sober now. And it's, I just don't think it's not valid. But I get where it comes from.
Yeah.
But it's just not true.
Well, I think, like I said before, I think initially people want to be respectful of it.
Right.
Sure.
And they don't.
Totally.
And if you are part of a friend circle that doesn't really have anybody who's gone through that.
Right.
You really don't understand like how to act in a sense.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you're saying this because I think that's it should be known just to act yourself. Like they are doing it or you were doing it to help yourself out and you're not drinking because your friends are drinking, you're drinking because you want to.
And the other thing you got to think about, like the person that's going to that party, the addict that's going to that party, best believe they've thought about 5 different things and worked through 20 billion things in their life to go, okay, I'm good to go to a party right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so and if they're not,
they won't be there.
They won't be there.
Yeah, and there's like things you can do too as addicts. You go like with your significant other, you got like a look you give them or a word, and it's like I gotta go, and that's true too. That happens. It hasn't happened to me because I wouldn't. I don't know. I was so set on just being sober guy. I like brag about being sober. But that wasn't my case. But a lot of people like triggers and stuff. They'll be at a party and they're like, I gotta go. Yeah. So they remove themselves from the situation. Yeah. But there's nothing anybody else can do to make that easier on the sober person.
Yeah. The sober person is doing the internal work.
Yeah.
Already.
It's all it's all inside. It's you that's gonna handle that. No one else can help that or hurt that.
Yeah. So like Stephen doesn't say like triggers. Like for me, I talk about not working on cars, right? That was huge for me. My mouth with water. The smell of striking a match was a trigger for me. Yeah. It was a huge trigger. And believe it or not, hanging around my mom was a huge trigger for me. And
what was your mom addicted to?
Meth and alcohol. Okay. Yeah. And so that's a whole other podcast, bro. That's a whole other podcast. This is where you're talking about Omar's addiction today. It's going to be like a long time. Like you can only tell one addict's story at a time. But yeah, it's so those are like things that I knew I had to go through because the smell of the striking a cigarette reminded me of the smell of the smoke. So it's very similar, right? So things like that, but not every alcoholic or addict has it. Yeah. And so some people don't have triggers or they don't know them or their trigger was something that happened to them that started them to drink. Right. So like that probably was already addressed through your recovery. Right.
Sure. Hopefully.
Hopefully not, but you can rework those steps again. Are you a part? So you went through recovery. Are you still going to like AA and?
No. So the program I went to, it's not AA based.
Good.
It's all based on like you can do this shit yourself.
Right.
Well, not necessarily yourself. There's a lot of like team building stuff. Right. They talk about this thing called Brothers Keeper.
Right.
Where you have 5 guys that are sober that are on your team, and as long as you talk to them, like they've got this down to a science. You talk to one of those 5 dudes for I forget the time, but it was like 10, 20 minutes a week. You're talking to one of them and just kind of staying in contact. That's like a big part of just kind of holding yourself accountable.
Yeah.
I still go up there and I do workouts with them, say hi to the coaches and stuff and stay involved that way. But no, I don't do AA. We did AA in the program. We had to go twice a week. But I just didn't resonate with me. A lot of the concepts.
Yeah, funny.
I understand that it's a successful program, but I can tell you that all the AA people that I know that went through this treehouse program that kind of teaches you to do it yourself in your own way, all have relapsed.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say
all of them.
And my mom being in the field, like working, was it. She's the one who kind of turned me away from, because I was big when I got out of rehab. I was like, I'm going to go into NA. Yeah. And so I would go to AA meetings or NA meetings, but I found myself more at risk because you were literally in those meetings and you're opening up a can of emotions, right?
Yeah.
And then because you open up that can of emotions, you're very vulnerable at that point. Yeah. And so there was a lot of drugs in NA. The newcomer, quote unquote, right? So the newcomer would come in and that person had a sack on him. You just knew.
Yeah.
Like And there was a lot of people that had relapsed in the meetings or in a meeting or after a meeting or before a meeting, or they 13th step it is what they call, like, they hooked up with another person. Right.
Yeah.
And so those were the things that my mom was like, yeah. And my mom was for me going to meetings, but she was more so for me going into like my spirituality and get a relationship with God and all this other stuff and doing the work on myself than versus putting a huge emphasis on a meeting. And so I did go to NA for a little while, but I, like Stephen was like, dude,
there's like a system they have at Treehouse, and I'm not going to remember it all, but it's like being spiritual, having some sort of connection to something. It could be surfing.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be
as long as you have a connection to something that gets you
something bigger than you,
something greater than you,
like the
100%.
ocean.
100%.
I mean, AA says higher power, and and then it always turns to God. I mean, you talk to someone.
Well, that whole program was built off of that. It was a Christian guy. Bill was Christian.
Religion. Right? And all this stuff. So that physical exercise is very important. All the guys that are successful stay physically active. Brother's keeper, talking to other badasses that are sober. And there's a few more. I don't remember them all, but that's what I do. And the thing with AA is, I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, a lot of people in AA, if they lost AA, they lose their sobriety.
Yep.
So during COVID, when they shut down all these AA meetings, a lot of people relapsed.
Yeah.
100%.
Because they're only it's like the only reason they're sober is because they have their AA meeting to go to. Now, if I'm feeling weird or whatever, I can use that as a tool. Go to an AA meeting. I haven't gone to one since, but I have that. I know it's out there, and I know it's a tool. Yeah. I haven't used it, but it's not the only thing that I'm relying on to stay sober.
Yeah. I coach.
I'm relying on all the other stuff.
Yeah. I coach some like mindset clients, right? And that was the concept of a toolbox is like the number one thing that I got out of my recovery. This concept of toolbox.
Yeah.
And so you talked about AA being a tool.
Yeah.
And there's so many other tools. One of many. Like, 100%. Like how big is your tool? How big do you want your toolbox to be?
Yeah.
And like, don't be stupid. Don't sit there and try to fix a problem that can only be fixed with this flathead screwdriver and go grab a wrench or a hammer. Yeah. Like there's so many other things in your toolbox. And if you just have one or two or three tools, you will relapse. You will fall again, guaranteed. So like the constant growth aspect of recovery is huge. And so like the fears for me were huge, right? Because those fears were going to drive me to do something stupid, whether that be chasing a woman outside of my marriage, whether that be relapsing, whether that be whatever, because you talk like this whole recovery thing for me is like a power of replacement. You're going to be an addict. No matter what, you are an addict. Yeah. Like are there things that you become easier through your recovery? Absolutely. However, deep down to your core, you're an addict. Yeah. You will be addicted to something. Whatever that is, it'll be something. Yeah. And so fitness being that huge part of it, getting back to that part of the conversation for us is like so big for me. People are like, why do you work out so hard? And I'm like, because I used very hard, or because they don't know, and why do you do everything so like all or nothing? Well, because that's how I am. I'm a fucking addict. Like this is who I am as a person. You cannot change that. Now I have this concept of like being addicted to balance. And, people criticize me a lot for telling this story, right? For me, I'm going to be addicted to something, and I will allow my job, my business, my whatever that is. Fitness has been an addiction of mine to where it's started impeding into other areas, healthy areas of my life, like my marriage and my relationship with my kids and all these things. So anything can be an addiction. So if I'm going to be addicted to something, I better be addicted to something that's going to keep me level-headed and in a healthy place. And that's for me is balance. Yeah. So when I don't feel that, when I feel like I'm leaning too hard, like this past year, I gained, 40 pounds because I opened up a business. And what did I do? I woke up, worked on my business until I fell asleep. And that was at midnight. And then I'm up at again at 4. Like, and then it was like over and over again. I'm like, holy shit, I'm an asshole right now.
Yeah.
I'm becoming addicted to my business. So this whole year, it's like, Jeff and I talk about like, dude, you can't like let me push off my workouts. Like this is what I think. So it's like one of those things.
Once you start eliminating those things that keep you healthy, keep your brain normal, it's like, how long can you do that? Probably not long.
No.
Until it's like, okay, dude, let's reevaluate.
Yeah. Things start becoming unmanageable in the areas that you really want to be manageable.
When your business, probably you're running it, but it's probably not that good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's more like running me.
How efficient are you?
Yeah.
You know, so
it's like turning things off and understanding like, if I don't spend time with myself spiritually, if I don't spend time with myself physically in my fitness, right? If I don't have emotional time with my wife, right, or my kids, like I will be doing something that's not healthy for me overall.
Yeah.
And so, like the addiction to me is a recovery to me is more about the power of replacement and understanding what that replacement is, because no matter how you slice it, we're always going to be addicted to something. It's funny you bring up the caveman stage because that's how we are. Right. And so I am so driven to find more things about how neurologically our brains work, and especially particularly a selfishness out of me. Like I want to know how my brain works. What triggers me to be this way? Why am I this way? Like all these things, like, because I want to be able to help as many people as I can to let them know, like it's okay. You're not the only one in the world that struggles from addiction.
Yeah. Everyone thinks it is an internal struggle.
100%.
Everyone thinks they're special.
You're not special.
Like you're not special. There's a shitload of us out here.
Like, watch.
And by the way, we can band together and fucking kick ass. If you want.
Not like there's a shit ton of us.
How am I finding the minority in this one?
6'5" white guy. No, dude, I don't know, man.
The guy drinks a cocktail, takes him an hour. Dude. I'm like,
that's like 2 minutes. Why are you nursing the fuck out of that, dude? Like,
that's the ice is melted.
Yeah, I know. Hey, only my wife can joke about that.
Yeah.
I look at it as
normal people.
I look at it as I'm saving money and I'm I'm just saving myself for later, maybe.
Fucking normals.
It was so fucking fun to have you come in.
Oh yeah, this was awesome, dude. I fucking loved it, man.
I didn't expect this was going to be just a conversation about rehab the entire time, but I fucking loved it, and I think this definitely, if people are listening in and having some of those issues, you've got a friend that's coming out of rehab, you don't know how to act around them. Like, you need to know that you can just act normal, right? So I love the fact that you were able to come in, and thankful that you are open to always just having that conversation.
Oh,
right?
We got to hang out after this, man. I will not work out with you,
though.
With you. No, come on, dog. I'm down. We'll get you in there. Like, you got to get together. But I genuinely appreciate it. I love and I hope that the people listening that are struggling with either somebody in their family that is an addict get some insight out of this. And if you are struggling with that yourself, know that there's help out there.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the big things.
That's the hardest part, is reaching out. Yeah. And that's why I said, I kind of set myself up, I guess, a little bit for getting found.
Yeah.
But the hardest part is asking for help. No addict's gonna ask for help. But yeah, it's out there. It's out there. Fucking hit me up. Hit anybody. Hit me up on Instagram.
Instagram, whatever. Right. What is for that? What is your Instagram handle for people?
Kuzmon. Kuzemon.
There you go. So if you're struggling with that, trust me, he got a good treat.
Me. Yeah, I got you.
We'll put those in the show notes.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you very much. I love you, brother.
All right, love you too, brother.
Yeah.
This has been an international podcast transmission of No Fixed Agenda. You can rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you find your favorite podcast episodes. Thank you for listening in. No Fixed Agenda, over and out.